Gordon, Bane has escaped.
Running from reality means filling every waking moment with stimulation and distraction so that you never have to sit with the truth of where your life actually is. And this constant fleeing has become so normal that most people do not even recognize they are doing it, mistaking their endless consumption for a life rather than the avoidance of one. The man trapped in this pattern wakes and immediately reaches for noise, music blasting before his eyes are fully open. Then the phone in his hand before his feet touch the floor, the scroll beginning before a single real thought can form, because the silence and stillness of an unfilled moment would force him to confront the gap between the life he is living and the life he keeps promising himself. This is the deepest function of all that distraction, not entertainment but anesthesia, a way of staying numb to a reality too uncomfortable to face directly. The running feels like living because it is so busy, so full of input. But it is the opposite of living, a frantic motion designed specifically to avoid ever arriving anywhere true. The morning sets the entire trajectory of the day, and the man who spends his first hour blasting music and scrolling has already drained the mental energy he needed before he has done anything that matters, arriving at the real work of his life already exhausted by the very activities that were supposed to be harmless. The brain wakes in a rare state of clarity and reserve, the tank full, the mind sharp, and this man immediately empties it into a feed that gives nothing back, so that by the time he actually has to perform, the prime fuel is gone and only the dregs remain. He then wonders why he has no energy for his goals, never connecting the depletion to the morning ritual that caused it. This matters because the order of your day is not random. What you do first claims the best of you, and giving the best of you to distraction means there is nothing left for the things that would actually change your life. The morning is where the day is won or lost, and he loses it before it even begins. The job becomes a place where this man makes grand plans that he has no intention of executing, dreaming big at his desk about the life he will build, while the actual hours leak away into tasks that serve someone else's vision, the planning itself functioning as another form of escape. Making plans feels like progress, scratches the itch of ambition just enough to relieve the pressure, and so he confuses the pleasant sensation of imagining his future with the difficult work of building it. The plans never become action because the planning was never meant to lead to action. It was meant to make the present feel bearable, to provide the feeling of forward motion without the cost of actually moving. Why this is so insidious is that it is harder to see than obvious distraction, because it wears the costume of ambition, and a man can fool himself for years that he is working towards something when he is only ever thinking about working towards something. The dreaming becomes a substitute for the doing rather than a prelude to it. The evening completes the cycle of escape with consumption that drains him at the deepest level, the explicit content that hijacks his reward system and leaves him sexually and mentally depleted, dissipating the drive and energy that might otherwise have fueled the pursuit of his actual goals. This is not a minor habit, but a significant leak, because the same energy that pornography consumes is the energy of ambition and aggression and drive, the raw force that, channeled correctly, builds empires, and he is discharging it nightly into a screen for nothing. The depletion is real and it compounds, leaving him not just tired but hollowed out, his motivation drained at the source, his capacity for the sustained pursuit of difficult goals quietly destroyed. What this means for the larger pattern is that even if he wanted to break the cycle, he has been systematically draining the very fuel he would need to break it, so that escape feeds on itself, the consumption that numbs him, also weakening the drive that might have freed him. The loop repeats 7 days a week, because that is what loops do, running automatically once established. Each day a near identical copy of the last, and the sameness is precisely what makes it so dangerous, because a single wasted day seems harmless while 1,000 identical wasted days constitute a wasted life. The man inside the loop does not feel each day as a tragedy. He feels it as normal, as just how things are, as the unremarkable texture of an ordinary life. This normalcy is the disguise that lets the loop run for years undetected. He is not making a choice each day to waste it. He is simply executing the same program he ran that day, the pattern so automatic that conscious decision has dropped out entirely. Why this should alarm you is that the automatic nature of the loop means it will run indefinitely if not deliberately broken, carrying you through year after year of identical days while you mistake the repetition for stability until the accumulated weight of all those copies finally becomes impossible to ignore. The day comes eventually for everyone trapped in this pattern when they look back and discover that their dreams have quietly expired, the windows closed, the chances gone, the life they always meant to build now permanently out of reach, because the time required to build it was spent day by day on escape. This is the moment the whole loop was leading toward all along, the reckoning that the constant distraction was designed to postpone, but never could actually prevent, only delay, and the delay made it worse, because the dreams did not wait. They had timelines, those dreams' requirements of energy and youth and accumulated effort that a man cannot suddenly summon at the end, and so they simply expired while he was busy running from the reality that would have spurred him to chase them. This is why facing reality matters so urgently, because the reality you keep avoiding is the only thing that could have motivated you to change before the windows closed, and the avoidance guarantees the very outcome you were trying not to see.
The comfort economy is not built because people are strong, clear, satisfied, and fully engaged with their lives. It is built because escape has become one of the most profitable needs on Earth. Streaming sells escape from boredom. Fast food sells escape from effort. Alcohol sells escape from tension. Gambling sells escape from financial pressure by offering the fantasy of sudden rescue. Online dating sells escape from loneliness while often making loneliness sharper. Gaming sells escape from a life that feels powerless by giving a world where progress is immediate, measurable, and rewarded. Social media sells escape from silence, emptiness, and the painful feeling that nothing meaningful is happening. None of this means every person who uses these things is broken. That would be too simple. The colder truth is that the machine does not require you to be broken. It only requires you to be tired, distracted, stressed, uncertain, understimulated, lonely, or disappointed for long enough to reach for relief before you reach for command. A man should not begin with shame when examining this machine, because shame often pushes him deeper into the very escapes he is trying to understand. Begin with accuracy. These industries study human pain with precision. They study boredom, craving, fatigue, insecurity, lust, status anxiety, loneliness, fear, and the small emotional wounds people carry through ordinary days. The design is not random. The endless scroll is not random. The autoplay is not random. The bright packaging, cheap availability, flashing odds, matching systems, reward sounds, streaks, badges, infinite feeds, and personalized recommendations are not accidents. They exist because the human nervous system can be trained. When discomfort appears and a product provides quick relief, the brain remembers. Repeat that enough times and relief becomes a pathway. The consumer thinks he is choosing freely every time, while the system has been quietly lowering the friction around his avoidance. Reality becomes unbearable in small pieces before anyone admits they are escaping it. A difficult body in the mirror, a dead-end job, a bank account that creates pressure, a relationship without truth, a dream delayed for too long, a mind that cannot sit quietly without attacking itself, a future that feels unclear. None of these problems vanish because a screen lights up, a drink lands in the hand, food arrives at the door, or a game gives another mission to complete. Relief arrives, certainly. That relief is real, which is why the trap works. The body relaxes for a moment. The mind receives stimulation. The pressure drops. Yet the original life remains waiting under the surface, unchanged and slightly more neglected than before. Escape becomes expensive because it charges twice, once in money, then again in time, attention, energy, health, focus, and self-respect. There is a brutal difference between rest and avoidance. Rest restores you so you can return to life with more strength. Avoidance sedates you so you can postpone the life that needs your strength. A good meal after hard work can be rest. Eating to numb shame every night is avoidance. A film after a disciplined day can be rest. Hours of streaming because you cannot face your own thoughts is avoidance. A game played occasionally can be recreation. A game used as the only place where progress feels possible becomes a substitute life. The action itself is not always the enemy. The function of the action decides its nature. Ask what it does inside your life. Does it restore command, or does it help you abandon command while pretending you are recovering? The machine becomes dangerous because it can turn avoidance into identity. At first, the escape is occasional. Then it becomes routine. After enough repetition, the person begins defending it as personality. He is not avoiding discomfort. He is just someone who likes to unwind. He is not running from loneliness. He is just exploring options. He is not numbing stress. He is just enjoying himself. He is not wasting evenings. He is just staying connected. Language protects the habit. The habit protects the wound. The wound remains untreated. This is how a life can look normal from the outside, while the inner structure weakens year after year. A man may still work, pay bills, laugh, socialize, and function, yet his best energy keeps disappearing into systems designed to keep him away from the conversation he needs to have with himself. Recognizing the machine does not mean hating pleasure. A life without pleasure becomes dry, rigid, and brittle. The problem is not pleasure. The problem is being farmed through pleasure. A disciplined man can enjoy without being owned. He can watch without becoming passive. He can eat without losing control. He can play without abandoning purpose. He can drink rarely, or not at all, because the choice remains his. Ownership is the line. When the product chooses the timing, the amount, the mood, and the escape route, command has been lost. A free man can say yes and remain free because he can also say no. The enslaved man calls it choice while reaching again after promising he would stop.
Reality operates like a creditor who never forgets a debt and never stops charging interest, which means every truth you refuse to face today does not disappear but quietly accrues, growing larger and more expensive With each year, you postpone the reckoning until the bill that would have been small becomes ruinous. The man living in denial believes he is escaping the cost by not looking, when he is actually choosing the worst possible payment plan, deferring a debt that compounds in the dark. Taleb understood that self-deception is not free and not permanent, that the comfort it buys is borrowed against a future that always arrives. And the longer the borrowing continues, the more crushing the eventual repayment. There is no version of denial that ends in forgiveness of the debt. There is only the choice between paying a manageable sum now or a catastrophic one later, because reality, patient beyond all human capacity, for patience, simply waits, and then it collects in full. A small reality check taken early is one of the cheapest things a man can buy. A minor discomfort, a moment of honest assessment, a correction made while the deviation is still tiny and the cost of fixing it still low. The man who notices the first signs of trouble in his marriage and faces them pays the small price of an uncomfortable conversation, while the man who looks away pays the enormous price of a divorce years later, after the small problem he ignored grew into something that consumed his home and his children and half of everything he built. The early check costs a little pride and a little pain. The delayed reckoning costs the life itself. This is the brutal economics of denial, that the price of confronting reality only ever rises with time, that what could have been settled cheaply at the beginning becomes a life-ending event at the end. Pay early when the cost is small. The man who refuses always pays more, and sometimes pays everything. The catastrophic confrontations that end up defining ruined lives, the divorces and bankruptcies and breakdowns and sudden diagnoses, are almost never sudden at all. But the delayed collection of debts that accumulated for years, while the man told himself everything was fine. The bankruptcy was visible in the spending. Years before it arrived, the man simply refused to look at the numbers. The breakdown was building through countless ignored signals of a mind under unbearable strain. He kept pushing the warnings away. The illness was foreshadowed by symptoms dismissed and checkups avoided. What looks like a bolt from the blue is usually the final due date on a debt the man knew about and chose not to pay, and the suddenness is an illusion created by his own prolonged refusal to see what was coming. The catastrophe was on the calendar all along, scheduled by every small reality he declined to face, and it arrived exactly on time. Denial works precisely because it removes pain in the present moment, which is why it is so seductive and so common. The mind protecting itself from an uncomfortable truth by simply refusing to acknowledge it, buying immediate relief at the cost of a future it does not have to feel yet. The relief is real. That is the trap, because not looking genuinely does feel better in the short term, and the consequences are far enough away that they exert no pressure on the present. This is the same mechanism behind every destructive habit that trades a small pleasure now for a large pain later. Except here the currency is truth itself, and the man is borrowing against his own future by refusing to acknowledge what he already half knows. Why this matters is that the very feature that makes denial appealing, its immediate comfort, is what makes it so dangerous, because it hides the accumulating cost behind a pleasant numbness, right up until the moment the entire debt comes due at once. The longer a denial persists, the harder it becomes to break, because the man builds an increasingly elaborate structure of justifications and avoidances around the truth he refuses to face, investing more and more of his identity in not seeing it, until admitting it would mean admitting years of self-deception. The early denial is easy to reverse because little has been built on top of it, but the decades-long denial has become load-bearing, woven into how the man understands himself and his life, so that confronting it threatens to collapse the whole structure he has erected to avoid it. This is why people defend their denials so fiercely, why the confrontation gets more violent the longer it is delayed, because by then there is so much more at stake in finally looking. What this means for you is that the truth you are avoiding right now is the cheapest it will ever be to face, that every day you wait raises the psychological cost of eventually facing it, and that the longer you build on the lie, the more painful the demolition becomes. You can feel, somewhere beneath your awareness, the specific realities you are currently refusing to look at, the ones that produce a flicker of anxiety when they drift near your conscious mind before you push them away again. The financial situation you do not examine closely, the relationship you know is failing but will not address, the health you are neglecting, and the symptoms you keep rationalizing, the career going nowhere that you refuse to honestly assess. These are your accruing debts, the reality checks you are deferring, and the discomfort you feel when they surface is the sound of the meter running, the interest accumulating on truths you have chosen not to pay. Why you need to identify them now is that naming them is the first installment on the debt, the beginning of paying the small price before it becomes the large one. And the very fact that thinking about them is uncomfortable is the clearest signal of exactly which reality checks you have been delaying.
A day reveals a man more honestly than his ambitions ever will. Do not ask what you want in your proudest mood. Look at what your mind does when nothing is demanding its attention. The empty moment is the interrogation room. When the task ends, where does the mind run? When the room gets quiet, what thought returns? When the phone is not in your hand, what discomfort starts knocking? When no one needs you, no deadline is pressing, no conversation is happening, and no noise is protecting you, the hidden structure of your life begins to appear. That is why empty moments feel dangerous. They remove the performance. They remove the script. They show you what has been waiting underneath the day. A man can lie through goals, plans, and speeches, but his reflexes tell the truth. The thing you reach for without thinking is often the thing that has been ruling you without permission. Your mind does not wander randomly. It circles unfinished business. It returns to the wound, the fear, the hunger, the regret, the fantasy, the resentment, the shame, the person, the dream, the failure, the decision, or the pressure that has not been faced. Sometimes the wandering looks innocent. A memory appears. A future argument begins. A sexual image arrives. A money worry returns. An old humiliation starts playing again. A better life flashes in the head for a few seconds, then disappears under the next distraction. These are not meaningless sparks. They are signals. The mind keeps revisiting what has not been processed, solved, accepted, forgiven, built, or buried properly. If the same thought keeps returning in silence, stop treating it like background noise. It may be a map with a knife hidden in it. The hand reaches before the mind admits why. That is where the evidence sits. Some people reach for the phone the moment a difficult feeling appears. Others reach for food, music, pornography, messages, shopping, gaming, gossip, alcohol, fantasy, sleep, or pointless movement. The object matters less than the function. What does it protect you from feeling? What does it help you postpone? What does it make quieter for an hour? If the reach happens after boredom, the enemy may be emptiness. After stress, the enemy may be responsibility. Following loneliness, the enemy may be unmet connection. After work frustration, the enemy may be a life you know needs changing. The habit is not only the habit, it is the smoke. Find the fire. A disciplined man studies the reach because the reach shows where command has been lost. Avoidance often hides behind ordinary routines. A man says he is relaxing, yet the relaxation always appears before the same decision. He says he is tired, yet the tiredness always arrives when the hard task begins. He says he is busy, although the busyness is filled with things that do not threaten his excuses. This is why the day must be examined with cold eyes. Track the timing. What do you avoid before the work? What do you consume after feeling inadequate? Which conversation do you keep delaying? Which plan do you keep improving instead of executing? Which person enters your head when silence arrives? Which fear becomes loudest when the world stops distracting you? The pattern is rarely complicated. It is usually simple enough to embarrass you. That embarrassment is useful. It means the truth has reached the surface. Reality waits in the exact place you keep escaping.